So thank you so much for joining me today. Welcome to my channel. Welcome if this is your first time, or welcome back if you have been with me before. I am Kat and I moved over to Australia with my now fiance 1 year ago now. And I've made videos on the sort of journey getting over here and how that's been, settling in, and a bit of sort of travelling around. We're in Perth in Western Australia and we've done a fair bit of travelling around sort of weekend trips to explore our new home. And I thought, since the videos of us moving over here got quite a lot of interest and a lot of people in the same position or hoping to be in the same position, or that is their sort of 2-3 year outlook, I thought it would be really helpful to summarise what our first year in Australia was like, things that surprised us, things which maybe you should know for if you're going to move over here, and just generally our experience. I think quite often you hear about people who've moved over here and then you just see their Instagram, the glitz and the glamour, and that's it. You don't really hear a bit more of the the living experience here. So I've got a bit of a list, and I did actually have quite a few, I did a Q&A on Instagram while I did the Q, and I'm going to do the A now. Okay, so a good place to start, I suppose, is probably how quickly we managed to settle in, and then favourite and least favourite. So we settled in, it took us, I would say, probably 6 months to feel settled. Initially we were coming over here for just a year, and we very quickly realised that it was such an upheaval, packing up all of our lives, leaving jobs, selling our house, all of that, to leave England and move out here. To then go back after a year just did not feel, it took me especially so long to feel like this was home. And I really didn't feel like I wanted to up sticks and go back again. And also I don't feel like I've quite done Australia yet. And I feel like now that we are a year in, I feel really settled and happy, and actually starting to make friends, make a bit of progress with, my job, and actually feeling like this is home and making something of it. Before that, I felt there was a lot of teething issues and feeling a bit lonely and struggling to understand, struggling a bit with the culture shift. I didn't think that there was going to be a huge culture shift between Australia and England, and then now that I'm living in it, I'm like, no, it's not, they're the same. But there's so many little intricacies which you just don't get, and I do still get the mick taken out of me a little bit by colleagues and things from really British things that I do or say or act, or just little things which you don't really think of, but just makes moving to a new country just that bit harder. I'm just going to pause because there's a helicopter. Okay, it's gone. So we arrived in February 2021. Then we had 2 weeks quarantine. So by the time we were out of quarantine, it was March, which is kind of the end of summer. We had probably, I would say, 2 months of really good weather. I remember that first month especially when we first moved into the apartment, and I didn't have a job because I wanted to wait until I'd found an apartment and settled a bit before I started looking for work, which was definitely a good idea if you can do that and give yourself the chance to just get used to the areas and explore a little bit and just kind of decompress. The move is very stressful, and if you have to do quarantine, I found that quite overwhelming, and just felt like I wasn't able to look for even apartments or anything. I had a nice buffer zone of probably 6 weeks from landing in Australia to then getting my job, maybe even 8 weeks actually, and that was so beneficial to me. Whereas Jake, my partner, had the 2 weeks quarantine, and then I think he had maybe a week and a half before he then started work, which meant that he was able to relax a little bit, but that was always forefront of his mind. And then once he'd gone to work, I was then just poodling about, working out the area, walking around the local parks and finding out where the nearest best coffee shop is, and all those things which helps make you feel like you're finding your own way in the city and getting settled in. So that was fantastic for me to have that time. It then went into a really terrible winter, and I don't know, I think this really contributed to me thinking why are we here, what is so great about it, because it just rained and rained and rained and then rained a bit more. The most torrential downpours that I have ever seen, and I'm from England. It was insane. And like, I know there is a difference between like tropical storms and things versus the sort of drizzle that you get in England. But yeah, that was definitely something to contend with. And I think if we'd have arrived in summer, it would have made the world of difference, because I would have jumped straight into all things Australian summer, and Perth really comes alive in summer. I don't know if it's the case throughout all of Australia, but Perth in particular, really, there's events on all the time, all the spaces are being activated, there's so many more people out, like all of the restaurants and cafes throw the doors open, you realise that there's so many more places than you thought, because in winter, people full on hibernate. There's like no events on at the weekends in the evening, and all of the shops have, you know, their alfresco areas are closed, so you don't even realise that the cafe's open often, and things like that. So that I found really challenging to deal with. And then when we got into summer, I was like, wow, okay, Australia is amazing. I get the hype. But it took me a good 6 to 8 months to get to there, which is interesting, and I think that really shaped my first year here. And one thing that might come into that is that when we moved here, we'd just come out of a pretty bitter English winter, and then had a month of sunshine, and then went straight back into winter again. So I think that might be it. And I do suffer from seasonal affective disorder, so my mood is considerably worse and grumpier and I'm fine, that sort of thing. In winter. In summer, I'm like, I'm great, everything's great, I love it. So yeah, I was really surprised by that actually, and how much that impacted me. And if that is something that you have any control over with when you come over, I would definitely recommend summer. Like, it's hot, like hot. I personally love that. Like, I have rarely been too hot, but it's just beautiful. Like, I'm sat on my balcony now. Noisy cars. Currently sat out on the balcony because Jake's on a night shift, and also the apartment's a tip, and this is the only tiny space I've got. But yeah, and I'm just looking out on it. It's just, I cannot see a single, okay, I can see one cloud over there, but it's stunning, gorgeous. You can throw on, you know, shorts and a little t-shirt and poodle on in your sandals. You don't have to think about your brolly, and it's just lush. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the questions now. So, where do you prefer living, UK or Oz? Are you guys planning on staying? Right. So, where do I prefer? It is so difficult, because if I could move every single one of my family members, friends, everything I know and love from England, and move it here, or move the weather to England and probably the coffee culture. Yeah, let's do a pros and cons list. Okay, England, family, friends, everything I know and love, people who are 100% like-minded, not even 100%, but they get it. It's very different. What else do I love about England? I do love the, like, being able to snuggle up in winter. Like, here you kind of can, but like the apartments, like, nothing's as cozy, whereas in England it really is so much cozier. You can throw on like a big turtleneck jumper and snuggle down in it and have a hot chocolate, and it feels like you're actually cold enough to. An English winter is just like, when you get a snowy day, it is just glorious. English countryside, miss that and love that, and just being able to go out for a long walk in fields. Here it's very different. You've got kind of the bush, and you've got a lot of, especially in summer, it's very barren and dry and brown, which again I found very difficult to like wrap my head around when we first moved here. I was like, where's the greenery? But I'm a lot more used to seeing the plants and trees and birds and stuff they've got here now, whereas initially I was just like, this is the most foreign thing in the universe to me. So yeah, okay, Australia tick list. Weather, sun, warmth, Australian fashion, coffee shops, and just the general food, it's a lot more of a casual, like, casual dining culture, going out to grab a bite to eat without having it be a formal sit-down meal. And there's so much more availability of a plethora of different cuisines. The amount of Asian cuisine that you get here is just like no other, compared to England, like obviously compared to Asia. But yeah, it's amazing, obviously, because the proximity to Asia is fantastic. Just the fact that here, if you have a weekend where you don't have anything to do, just sitting and being and, you know, reading and things feels so much more like a legitimate activity than in England when you're staying inside. And that's very much a thing which I struggle with anyway, and have always struggled with in England. Like, if you've got a spring day and it's 3 p.m. on a Saturday and you've got nothing to do, and you're like, and then you always end up having, like, I don't know, I just never do anything with that time. Here, you go down by the pool, you go sit on your beanbag on your balcony and read and have a nice coffee, and or you might go out for a coffee and things like that. It just feels very different. So yeah, I don't know if we're planning to stay. If I could move my family and friends here, then I think it would be a no-brainer. Another thing that is better in Australia is the wages. Like, the amount that we earn is a lot more than what we were earning at home, which means obviously quality of life has gone up. So we're able to, you know, buy nicer things, eat nicer food. Like, our supermarket shops are so much bougier than they used to be, and it doesn't even feel like you're being bougie because it's in line with our salaries. Like, it's just, that makes a huge difference, and will be a huge shock to the system when we do go home. So yeah, we've not decided. Like, I think for me currently, the need to be near family and friends, especially with like aging parents, and when, you know, family members start to have kids and things, and when I start to have kids, I want family close. So that is the main thing, and usually I can't talk about it without crying, so it's quite good that I managed to get through that without bursting into tears. I'm going to move on to the next question. We just got our visas for us and we're moving to Perth soon. What's your top tips for arriving? Congratulations, how exciting. That is amazing. Top tips for arriving, I think, as I said before, try to leave some time between arriving and starting your job. I think prioritise finding an apartment if you can, or a house or whatever, because that process can take a little bit of time. If you can get somewhere like a decent Airbnb where you can kind of make a decent base, and hire a car until you've bought a car and things. Just get out and explore before you start work. If you've got this time period before you start work, like, head up north and just go to Exmouth or go down to Margaret River. Like, make some time to explore those regions, because especially a place like Exmouth, they're too far to go on a weekend. Margaret River you can just about do on a weekend, but I would recommend a long weekend, otherwise it's a lot of driving. Or even just go and enjoy the beaches, go to Coogee. Hang on, are you coming to Perth? Yeah. So go to, spend a day at Coogee, like snorkeling around the Omeo wreck. Definitely go to Rottnest Island, it is fantastic. Just spend days at the beach, City Beach, Cottesloe. Cottesloe is one of my favourites, Scarborough. Just explore and try to really soak it up. Yeah, I think it's so exciting. It's very easy to feel very overwhelmed. Go for brunches in different suburbs. Definitely, if you don't follow them already, follow on Instagram Perth is okay. And there is also Perth Life, and is there another one? Urban List Perth, which is actually Urban List Perth on Instagram. They are fantastic for giving you recommendations for where you can go, where you can visit, you know, good brunch spots, and it really helps you feel like you're kind of making sense of the city. Otherwise you feel like you're coming here and you're like, whoa, this is too much to kind of take in. Okay, next one. Who did you fly with? Pros and cons. What's your favourite thing about Perth? Lots of questions. Who do we fly with? And what's my favourite thing about Perth? I think actually I'm going to take this to be Perth over other cities in Australia, because we did travel around a week in Perth and a month on the East Coast back in 2019 it was. And so we've seen quite a few of the cities in Australia, or like the big cities, although we didn't go to like Adelaide, Melbourne, so that I feel like doesn't really give us much to compare to. But with Perth, I love that it's got, because you've got WA and then you've got Perth on its own, and it's really not built up. It has absolutely everything that you need within like a few hours, and it really covers like so many different types of things that you would want. So it's got beautiful beaches, like completely unlike anything else around the rest of Australia, I don't think. Climate's fantastic. You can go up north in, you know, the shoulder months for really hot weather. You can go, Exmouth. You can go to Broome. You could go down south to Margaret River for a lot more. There's a lot more like forests, and it's a lot more green, a bit more countryside. There's all the wineries, which is just fantastic. There's Esperance down south, which we've not been to yet, but I am so desperate to go, with the most stunning beaches again, and that's a bit cooler. With Perth being quite small, like I feel like I've been like edge to edge of the city, and there's so much by way of like within an hour you can get pretty much everything you want from the city. Like the shopping districts, like really beautiful shops, high-end shops, like Carrot Shopping Centre has loads, Claremont has loads. There's, you know, amazing districts that do incredible food. You've got Eastwick Park that's got loads of Chinese and Asian and Japanese cuisines. You've got Northbridge that's got nightlife and art and culture and all of that. You've got everything basically, which I love, whereas I think any other city you end up having to travel a little, like maybe 3 or 4 hours to get out into the countryside. I might be wrong with that, please forgive me if I am, but yeah, I just love the proximity to everything. Okay, favourite place that we've travelled to is probably Exmouth. That would be my highlight of being here. Got engaged, it was amazing. I'll link vlogs and things above. It was just the most beautiful place that I've been to. I also really love Margaret River, like have a real soft spot for there. I feel like that just encapsulates wherever you go, whatever you end up doing, it feels special there. Food's amazing, the drinks are amazing, the beaches are incredible, like it's just stunning. When are you coming home, says Mummy? August. You know I'm coming home in August for a couple of weeks for a family wedding. Don't ask me longer term. Anything you would have done differently? Probably just trying to move in summer if we could have done, but yeah, other than that, I think now that we have lived here for a little while, like we've put all of our stuff in storage in the UK, but I think had we known how it was going to be, maybe I would have got more stuff shipped out. Yeah, we've got a lot of furniture and things, and it's all scattered about. Like we've got a storage unit, but then we've also got some stuff at Jake's granny's house, some stuff at my parents' house, like some stuff at my sister's house. It's just a bit chaotic. But I think it's just one of those things where we weren't to know that we would maybe want to bring stuff over without being over here for a year. So, and even now we're not fully sure because we've been staying in this apartment which is furnished. So that's the only thing, and you can't really, it's hard to say. Any advice on making friends when you migrate? This is a brilliant question, and something that I really struggled with, and something that I really had to put effort into, which I never in my life before had to put effort into making friends. And I think it's just because growing up you have circumstantial friends, you have friends from school, you have friends from university, maybe some clubs that you do, like I used to do dancing, and so I would have friends through that, and that's just how it always is, and you stick with the same friends. When you start again from scratch, it is so difficult to make friends, because a lot of the people who are, people who I work with, they have their set groups of friends who they've been friends with since they were at school. And if you think too, like if you have always lived in the same place, you have your group of friends, and you don't people have closed circles, they're not recruiting for more friends, so it's really difficult to kind of penetrate into that and make more friends. And you've got to make yourself quite vulnerable and just say, look, I made a bit of a joke of it at work quite a few times, but it kind of worked. Like I would be like, yeah, I'm actively recruiting for friends and things, as long as you do it in a not creepy way. then people would be like, oh, well, me and my friends are going for this picnic this weekend, do you want to come? And I did. I get on really well with those girls, and I've seen them a few times, like as a group, a few times since. The main thing that I can recommend is finding Facebook groups for people in similar situations. So within Perth, there is expats in Perth and Poms in Oz, I think. We're not part of Poms in Oz, I've heard not great things about it. But there are also Facebook groups where they are for, so Girl Gone International is, and they have Girl Gone International groups across the world, and it is for people who are, you know, international girls who've moved to a place and want to make friends. And it is exclusively girls. I don't know if there is a boys version, but I know that there's unisex versions because I'm part of them. And just making yourself available and just saying, hey, I'm Kat, I'm into these things, does anyone want to go for brunch on this day? Or if somebody else posts, just say yes, just be a yes person. If someone says, so I ended up going to a Legally Blonde musical with a group of girls who I'd never met before. There was about 6 or 7 of them. And normally in England, I would never do that. I would be terrified. I wasn't that fussed about saying Legally Blonde. And I was just, really not sure about it. But went along because I just wanted to be a yes person and just try new things, and it was fantastic. And I've seen those girls a couple of times since. It's just nice to have touch points, even just people to follow on Instagram, so you don't feel like you're the only person in the world who's in Perth. So met those girls, follow them on Instagram, means that you can, drop into their DMs every now and then. If they post a story, say your food looks yum. Just say looks like you're having an amazing holiday. And just kind of keep reminding people hey, I'm here, and then just ask people to do things. Don't wait for them to. If they say no, don't take it personally. Everyone's got their own shit going on. I've got a friend here who I initially started talking to when I first moved here. I post on one of those groups, had quite a few chats with people, and then I just got super busy. I was a little bit poorly as well when we first moved, and I just, messaging people back was not on my radar. I was just too busy. And then she dropped into my messages again literally 6 months later and was like, hey, long time no speak, how are you? And then we ended up going for brunch, and it was lovely, and I now consider her a friend. I think being that person to just make the first move is so important, and leave your ego at the door and just do it. It's the best advice I can give. Try to find people who are in similar situations, but also just don't take anything too personally and be open. The other thing is, the best friends that we have here are people who we met on the aeroplane over here, which I never thought I would say, but they were also a couple who are similar age to us. He's a doctor, she's not, so very similar to Jake and I. And we just got chatting on the plane, and then exchanged numbers, and then we met up afterwards, and then now we are best friends and love them to bits, which is just so strange to me. So just be that person who strikes up a conversation with the person on the plane next to you, if you want to. How is it being away from family? We're making the move in October this year. Congratulations, that's so exciting. Let me know, I want to know if you're going to Perth or somewhere else in Australia. How exciting. It's hard being away from family, and you very much feels very separate. Everyone's lives carry on without you, and you're not part of it, and then they're just reporting back about their lives and you're reporting back about your life, which is hard. It's not easy, and it's something which, as I mentioned before, would be a reason for me to consider going back at some point. But it's manageable. We've got WhatsApp, we've got FaceTime, we've got Zoom, you can text them all the time. The only thing that I find difficult is the time difference, because here we are 7 or 8 hours ahead, depending on daylight saving back in the UK. That makes it quite tricky, because the time that's convenient for me to chat with them is not convenient for them to chat with me. So the only time when both parties are available or awake is around 7 p.m. for me and around midday for people at home. But how often are you completely plan free and just wanting to chat on the phone at midday on a weekend? Most people have plans. So that's what's a bit difficult. Or if they're free, then 7 p.m. on a Saturday, usually you're doing something as well. And obviously then mid-afternoon for me is first thing in the morning for them, so that works for some people. So sometimes I'll FaceTime my best friend live, when she's, you know, poodling about, having her coffee in the morning, going for a little morning walk, and it will be mid-afternoon for me, but that's not that common because the times just don't align. But other people do it better than me. I think I'm not somebody, even when I lived in Newcastle, in the UK, I was 3 hours away from family, and I don't think I was very good even then talking to people and making the time, and we were in the same time zone, so maybe it's just me. Have you come across many or any snakes? No. I have seen maybe one snake, and I don't know if it was a snake. I was on Rottnest Island riding a bike down a hill, and I saw something on the floor which looked like a snake, and I know there are snakes on Rottnest, so it's quite likely. It was probably that long if it was, you know, all stretchy outy. Not very scary, keeping itself to itself. But yeah, it's not as big a thing as I thought it would be. Same with spiders. Like, there's been the odd occasion I did get bit on my bum on New Year's Eve by a spider, but it wasn't like a dangerous, deadly one, clearly, because I'm here. But yeah, it's not that much of a big thing, and I've seen maybe, I don't know how many of like big spiders I've seen. Like from far away I've seen a couple when we've been like out in Exmouth and things, but not loads. Is your visa permanent? If not, how does the process work for extending? I am not the visa committee in this partnership of me and Jake. He very much deals with that because it's his visa, and then I'm piggybacking off that as his dependent. But we had a 1-year visa, which we have now extended to a 2nd year. One thing that we're probably considering doing is applying for permanent residency, and then like staying out here for as long as we need to do that and satisfy it, so that we can, I can't remember how it works, and Jake will be able to speak a lot better on this, but you have to stay for a few years to be able to get permanent residency / citizenship, which would mean that we would be able to move back to England for a few years if we wanted, but then still be able to come back here, which I think will be the way forward, just so that we've got the option. I think we would kick ourselves if we'd been here for a couple of years and then not stayed the extra little bit in order to get permanent residency and be able to get us back in, because who's to say whether we'll be able to get back in a few years' time. They're making it a bit harder. Well, they're making it harder and harder every year to get in. So I think that would be a really good option, because it might be the case that we want to, you know, go home and look after family, or like, you don't know what's going to happen, and then maybe have the option to retire out here or whatever. It'd be amazing. So that's the plan. Okay, so that is it for the questions. I'm just going to, I had a few bullet points that I thought of as well. So picking up the accent. So I am surprised at how much I've picked up small intonations and dialectal things with my accent. I'm from Derby in the UK, so I've got a kind of slight Derby accent. My parents are from Kent and Leicester, so I've got a bit of a mix of accents. I lived in Newcastle for 10 years and did not pick up an ounce of Geordie. Like, the only Geordie that I picked up was a few, again, dialectal things, like a few words, you know, saying things are canny or saying ee and things. But yeah, there's not many things which I picked up from Geordies. However, the Australian accent is slowly seeping in. There's a joke that we make with our other best friends who are here, which they moved out here about 2 years, I think it was, before we did. And we always take the mick out of her because she has really taken on the Australian O sound. So like, going to Cottesloe, or Freo, or oh, when are you going to go? Which I've started to notice is, you know, inching its way into my vocabulary. Jake always like picks it up with me, but especially I work in Fremantle, which we call Freo, like Freo. So yeah, that's coming in. There's a lot of Australian phrases and words that everyone who I work with is Australian, has quite strong accents. So I pick up a lot of, you know, saying people are cracking the shits instead of saying that they are freaking out or whatever, which is really funny to me. And I think because an Australian accent is a lot more similar to my Derby accent than a Derby accent to a Geordie accent. Like, I can't even put on a Geordie accent, whereas I can kind of, I'm not going to do it, but I can kind of put on an Australian accent. So yeah, I find that funny, and I'm intrigued to see where it goes and how my family and friends will feel about my accent as it changed. I think they're going to be like, what the hell? The other thing is the intonation. They do a lot of rising intonation. So when you're talking, then you go up at the end of the sentences. Oh, I'm going to Frio, which I found that I'm doing a lot more of. Okay, a few things that are different or surprising. I'm going to do this as a quick fire thing because I think I've gone on for quite long enough. So, deliveries and online shopping is not so much of a thing. Deliveries take 3 to 4 weeks, I would say, like at least 2 weeks before things arrive. So you are much better off going to a shopping centre, and there are shopping centres everywhere in every different suburb. This was not quick fire. I think Australians take it for granted. Like when I first started work, I would go out on a walk on my lunch break every day when it was nice weather, because it was nice weather and because it was blue skies. I've stopped doing that. Everyone else doesn't do it. I think also because UV and it's too hot and things, but just generally everyone always says, oh, Australians have such an outdoors lifestyle. They don't go for walks as much as English people. There's a lot more pelicans than I thought. I know this is a really strange one, but on my way, like on my commute, I will see between 5 and 10 pelicans every single day, each way. Like, it is insane to see. But I knew that they were in Finding Nemo. I genuinely thought that that was kind of a bit of fiction. Like, I did not expect them to be everywhere, but they are everywhere. Yeah, and they're freaky. They're so big. I think that's it. I think I'm going to leave it there. Oh, and the coffee culture is as described, as advertised. It's amazing. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there. If you have any more questions and things, feel free to come at me with them. And I hope that if you are planning to come out here, that you manage it and that you have an amazing, amazing time. Congratulations and welcome to all the people who have messaged me to say that you're coming over here. It's so exciting. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. All the best and see you soon. Bye.